To learn about the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Hit the bell notification. So today I didn't get a chance to work on the tiny house. Saturday, for me, of course you're going to get this video days after I actually make it. And I tried to take Saturdays off a little bit, Saturday mornings off. I talk to family on Saturday mornings, so I don't get a lot done. And by 11 o'clock, I still got to work. I got to work 7 days a week. It's just easier if I just kind of take the day off. And it also gives me a chance to think about things and how I want to do things. Today, I came up here and I thought I'd answer some questions because, man, I've gotten a slew of questions about this place. Primarily that I'm doing it wrong. And I just don't know how to explain this any better. Of course I'm doing it wrong. I am building a house under 200 square feet. It's 198 square feet. When you're under, I think 400 square feet, don't quote me on the exact, I don't have to follow code. That is kind of the purpose of building a tiny house, is so I didn't have to follow code and I could focus my money on things that I felt were more important than the code requirements. Remember, code is a standardized, uniform set of requirements that every house has to meet. Whether it's a two-story house, a house that's got 600 feet of wall space, or a small 400 square foot house. They all have to meet the same standards. For safety, number one, and for the assurance that if you sell your house, that the next owner knows that it's going to meet those requirements. Well, first, I am very satisfied that my tiny house is going to be safe because it's a tiny house. There's no weight to this. So for me to follow code is ridiculous. I'll be spending thousands of dollars building extra supports and structures and requirements that I don't have to have because it's just not heavy enough to worry about. So, for example, the 16-inch center. Your code requires that you put your 2x4s every 16 inches. And I've done it every 2 feet. Well, I feel very safe that I've done it every 2 feet because I'm using 2x6s, which is much bigger than a 2x4. I get more strength from it. So the weight distribution is going to equal out because I'm using a thicker board. Since I'm using 2x6s, I can focus on where I really want to focus. The most important thing to me is insulation. I want to make sure that the place is well insulated so I don't have to consume a lot of firewood. Cutting firewood is a lot of work, and I don't want to have to do that all my life, cutting tons and tons of firewood. It's not like I'm going around saying, oh, the heck with safety. I don't care if Carolyn and I die. I'm very concerned about safety. Everywhere I think there is a safety problem, I make sure that I follow the requirements. So for example, this window is 6 feet. It's a 6-foot window. It's a huge window, and it's on a bearing wall, which means all the rafter weight is going to be on this wall and the other wall just opposed to it. So I want to make sure that this wall is good and strong. So I did a proper header. Spaced out my studs. So this header is now on jack studs, jack stands, whatever you want to call them, because everybody calls them differently. So that means the weight of the roof won't be transferred to the window. The weight of the roof will be transferred using this header to the floor. Now this window, you will notice that I didn't put a header. So if you look, see, there's an extra board right there on this window that doesn't have one on this window. Oh my gosh, Rob, the house is going to fall down. Can't do that. You have to understand there is absolutely no more weight on this than just a few 2x4s. This is a non-bearing wall. The only weight you're going to have is one rafter and, half of a piece of plywood. You're not going to get more than 100 pounds on that. Not like, again, that I'm taking risk. Every article I've read about headers says that you don't have to have headers. Now, by code, you do. But by actual structural integrity, you don't have to have a header on non-bearing walls. Now, on my door, I did an improper header. Not that I'm worried about the weight, because this is, again, non-bearing wall. I didn't have to put one here. But I put one here simply because there's going to be a lot of banging on the door. Now, I said I'm going to use 2x4s for the rafters. And again, so many people have just told me you cannot use 2x4s for rafters. But it's obvious whoever's saying this really has not done their research. Because every contractor that I've spoken to and every article that I read says that, so these two walls are 12 feet apart. That means the beam that is actually going to support the wall is 6 feet apart. Because you got 6 feet going up and 6 feet going down. So any weight of the 2x4 can easily handle a 6-foot span. That is not going to be an issue at all. I've just spoken to somebody who hired contractors to build their house, and they use 2x4s on a regular house. So I'm not even understanding this argument. And if you go look at these little sheds they build at Home Depot, it's all built out of 2x4s. The whole thing. So no, it's just not true that you got to use 2x6s. Now the attic, the only thing we're going to put up in the attic's only going to be 3 feet tall. We're going to put canned goods up there. That's it. So there's no weight up there either. Now, insulation, you're right. Somebody asked the question about insulation. Since you're using 2x6s on the walls, why aren't you using 2x6s up here just for the insulation factor? You're absolutely right. On the ceiling, so right over our head, I'm going to lay insulation right there with the 2x4s. And then up on the angle part also where the roof is, I'm going to insulate that. So basically what I'm going to have is like bubble wrap. I'm going to have insulation, then an air pocket in the attic, and more insulation. That air pocket actually contributes to the insulation. That's why they do double pane windows. A double pane window has an air pocket in there that actually helps insulate. So you're heating that air in between the two insulation pockets. I bet I get 100 comments a day about my corners. There's supposed to be a board right here. Okay, and the reason you're supposed to put a board there is when you put your drywall on this wall, you're going to have something to nail it into, right there. Well, I didn't put one there. And I can't believe how many people think you got to have that right now. Yes, it would be a little bit easier if I installed it before I raised the wall. Agree with that totally. But with the cost of wood right now, what my hope is that when I'm actually in need of having to put that up, that the costs have come back down. And I'm just going to use a 2x4 there. I'm not going to use anything real expensive. Or the other thing I can do is I can scrap piece this together. If I can get enough scraps together, I can just nail it up. I mean, it won't look very pretty, but I can just nail it all up with a bunch of scraps. So that is like step Z. And I'm still on step, C. And then the other thing is a crown plate. Now, crown plate is a 2x4 that sets up on this board. It's just another board that you set on top of it. And Carolyn and I have went back and forth on this crown plate. Now, the crown plate serves two purposes. The first purpose is to try to remove any wiggle in your wall. The second purpose is to give you more strength so your rafters can sit on, and so it's not sagging this board. With lumber prices at $6 a pop, there's another 30, 40, 50 bucks. Again, with 2x6s, and as small as the house is, we're not going to get a lot of weight. Even if we got a 2-foot snow, I was really thinking about this. If we got a 2-foot snow, which is about the max that you're ever going to get in the state of Missouri, and that's very rare. I've only seen it twice in my lifetime. Well, the second time was under 2 feet. The first time was when I was a kid. So I'm thinking, how much weight is 2 feet of snow on one rafter? Now, my goal is to get the rafters to sit on this as close as possible. That would be a big help, because if the rafter's sitting on this 2x6, then all the weight is transferred straight to the floor. So I don't have to worry about the weight sagging the center beam. What possible amount of weight would this board here have to hold? And let's just say it's 500 pounds. I know that board is going to hold 500 pounds for the length of time the snow is going to be there. So we've decided we're not going to put the crown plate up there with a 2x4. We've been back and forth, and I've even told you on one occasion that we were going to do it, but we've changed our mind. We're going to go back with a gusset plate. A gusset plate is just a piece of metal that you kind of nail into the wood. And you see them on rafters all the time. If you ever go to a park in the pavilion, you'll see on rafters, they got these little metal things that you just kind of nail in there. Nailing that in there would help keep this from moving around, take some of the wobble out. And as much as I'm getting beat up on this, it really almost seems like, you know, everybody's got 30 years experience. When we were nomads, everybody had 40 years experience. Been doing this for 40 years. Well, now it's 30 years. The 30 years thing, it makes it sound like maybe there's some jealousy that they weren't able to accomplish something in their life, so they got to tell you that it's not going to work. And so they give you this fictitious number. I've been doing it for 30 years. Well, I don't believe the qualifications when everything I read says it's wrong. So the experts, in my opinion, don't know what they're talking about. They're going by code. I'm not going to go by code. So I had one person tell me that they were an authority on building houses and that they would condemn this house because it's built so badly. So the authorities know everything. Of course, this authority had 30 years. I hope I can inspire you to think outside the box. Thanks for watching.